Welcome back to part 2 of our Destiny discussion.
We still have a lot more to say.
We have a lot more to say, so we're definitely going to work on that. So what we were just about to talk about is for me personally, we talked, we like grindy games. We like Diablo and things like that. So why didn't Destiny's grind, why wasn't it more enjoyable? And I think a big part of that has to do with the grind process. You said you've grinded in the past, and I like to see when I'm at the end of a game, like Diablo, it's a slow build. Like in Diablo 3 specifically, you're getting items that are a little bit better than the items you had previously. You're getting more gems that you're able to upgrade into bigger gems, and that moment when you get that super big rare gem, you're able to put that in a socket and see a huge stat boost. And what you do is the chase is just a consistent slope upward until you reach, godhood. I run
Torment 6
dungeons, no problem. Me and my buddies were totally in sync, and you have that. And I think that a lot of what makes grinding fun in video games like WoW and Diablo and Destiny, and the reason we played, and a lot of people still play, is because you're right. It's kind of like playing poker for, a while back. It's just something you can do. It's kind of a game it requires strategy, but you can do it kind of without thinking.
Yeah, it's not, you don't have to put a lot of...
talk about what's going on. And we were doing that a lot. So what... Yeah, we got a siren outside, so there you go. But the thing that Destiny did was I would grind a lot and get, like we were talking about, absolutely
and you don't get nothing.
Like, I would get gear with lower light levels, so it was no purpose to me.
Now, that was in, specifically the strikes.
That was specific.
While we were grinding to get to the raid.
Grinding to get to the raid, which, honestly, is the bulk of the end game for a lot. Like, it's the first impressions of the end game. It's like, welcome to end game. This is what you're doing now. And it's running those strikes again and again and again. And
like the 4 of them.
So, what ended up happening for me is I literally made 0 progress on my character for about a week and a half of just playing every night, 3 or 4 hours. And I did not feel super great about that. Then the twig broke and the avalanche came down because I was able to get one gun I'd been saving up for, my first purchase from the legendary vendor. And then I, got 2 items in a row, just dumb luck, legendary rolls from a package or whatever that was sent to me from the Cryptard. And then all of a sudden, I was no longer light level 22, I was light level 26. I was like, wow, I just skipped all these levels, and it might not have been that big of a jump, but it was a significant...
You jumped several levels, at least 2 levels ahead of me.
Yeah,
I was like, you lucky bastard. We're all trying to do the same thing, and he just lucked out and got...
I didn't feel necessarily good about that, because at that point I was higher level than all my friends, and so I had meet the minimum level cap to do weekly strikes. So I wanted to do weekly strikes.
But you didn't have anyone to do it with.
But I didn't have any friends to do it with, because I talked about this earlier, but not that content was walled off from level 20 characters. Level 20 should be the end game. All end game things should be accessible.
At level 20, you have to do the level 20 strikes, and then you get level 22, then you do the level 22 strikes,
but why
and then
didn't all the content have that choice? That you were given that in the strikes, which I want to talk about strikes because you're right, that's the bread and butter. That is the bulk of the end game experience.
Well, before we go to that, I think part of the grinding part that I think is, for me, was pretty a downer, was okay, in WoW or Diablo, you mentioned the gyms, and this gym system in Diablo is basically just used as a way to, it gives you a big stat boost.
Yeah.
It gives you a further way to customize your character. You want more resistance to damage, okay, you get resist this type of damage, or all damage, or if you want more health, you get health gems. If you want more dexterity, you get this, and you can customize your character fully that way. But the key part is that you can remove those gems.
Yes.
And then you can use those to make stronger gems. You're not losing progress when you do that. And same with WoW. You're not pouring tons of resources into these these epic pieces of gear you're getting. You can gem them, you can ungem them. Sure, you can enchant them, but that's not a huge thing, and you can just enchant the next piece of gear you get. In Destiny, You pour hours and hours and hours into upgrading those items to get higher light level and better stats, only to get another item with higher light level. So you grind your ass off to get this item with light level, so you can do something that has a chance of getting you better light level items. Mm-hmm. You get those better light level items. All those hours you spent go down the drain, and you start again, and you grind that other item all the way up. That drives me insane.
No one.
That is what personally why I can't grind in that game. Mm-hmm. I am fine like grinding, like you said, like we like that kind of stuff. But specifically the way the upgrade system in that game, it to me it's a time sink, and it's designed to make you come back every day. Mm-hmm. It's designed to keep you playing, but not in a good way. Not in a way that like I'm having fun. I can't wait to see what I get next, but I gotta do these bounties so I can level up this gear so I can get to that thing I want to do.
Yeah.
And to me, that's
I think a lot of that would have been just solved at giving me a multitude of choices. You know, one of the things that Reaper of Souls did that I think opened that game up so much once you hit that level cap was creating different tiers of that hardest difficulty.
Exactly.
And that's something that like Destiny could have totally benefited from that system being implemented in
now there's also
more than
like
strikes.
a random element to Diablo that keeps it fresher longer. Mm-hmm. There's the adventure mode, which is just kind of like, well, the Nephilim Rifts, which were related way after Diablo originally shipped, which is why there's hope for Destiny, I think.
Oh yeah.
Diablo 3 was not a fantastic game when it came out. The Reaper of Souls expansion that came out this year, in our opinion, improved it a lot by adding more in-game stuff and fixing a lot of the problems with its loot system and difficulty systems.
It turned it from a series of frustrating systems into a fun game.
So Destiny, I think, is still at that point where it's these kind of frustrating systems that we would personally like to see improved before we came back. But yeah, Diablo has that random element where it's still fun to play, whereas Destiny, you were killing Septix Prime 29, 30 times in a row. It's the same every time.
Yeah.
There's no variety in the strikes. I know you wanted to talk about strikes.
Yeah, the strikes are something that, like, that for me was what I was planning on pouring my time into. The raid is fun, but as soon as I heard about the...
And you didn't care about PvP. You didn't care about Crucible.
We're going to talk about Crucible, don't worry, but... something personally about me, like PvP, just like it doesn't appeal to me in a lot of places. Like there are times where I like it, but in a game like this, I was looking more forward to that the cooperative experience. So when I got to the strikes, I started playing through them, and this harkens a little bit back to the raid, but the strikes have no strategy to them. Everything is blood sponge.
It's run and gun.
That's the first thing. The second thing was I didn't feel like I was being rewarded for these strikes.
You get basically nothing, except for the hired ones.
Unless it was helping me level my guns. That was about it. Yeah. Or unless I was working on a bounty, which nobody...
Well, I mean, if you do like the upper level strike playlist, remember at the end you would get like a random...
random
reward. I mean, and for a long time those were really bad. They've since improved them, but they used to were basically trash. You would just get trash items.
Destiny has come a long way.
It's come a long way.
The problem is, and one of the reasons I traded, if I still had Destiny, I'd probably still play Destiny because again, that gameplay is fun, but it's not a healthy relationship with the game itself because it's gameplay hidden behind all these systems that just frustrate you. But regardless, like the strikes. Do I think it was scummy that a strike was held back for one specific system? Yes. That's a whole different conversation. But, I think, what was it? It shipped with 5 strikes? Was that right?
There's it
was 5 strikes.
There's one on them. There's 2 on Venus, 1 on Earth.
That was 5.
1 on on Mars. Oh, and 1 on the Moon.
Yeah. There were 5 strikes
so
that shipped with because the 6th one was a PS4 exclusive. I think it would have been cool to play that, but apparently that one wasn't super amazing, so I didn't feel like I missed out too much. But that's what I was waiting for. That was my excitement. And I got into it, and I quickly realized that there's no amount of randomness. There's no, it is the same. It's like, oh, okay, well, at this part, be careful. 2 bad guys spawn that shoot plasma weapons that'll kill you in one hit if you're not careful. Oh, this is when the snipers spawn, and
there's no strategy.
Like, and jumping back to a game like Diablo,
or even WoW,
like,
which is like the dungeons are probably what you would think of when you say the strikes. I think when they were initially talking about Destiny in the strikes, what we thought of is like, oh, they're gonna be like dungeons. They're gonna be like lesser versions of the raid.
Well,
but
I expected the strikes to be where the like super awesome story moments happen.
Yeah.
Like
yes.
In WoW, like I remember Shadowfang Keep is like this big story moment that you literally one of the first dungeons you get to now in WoW. And it's just like you just come out of the door. Like I would have loved to at level 5 to have been going on some amazing mission to stop like the leader of the, I think the Fallen, like being able to just go for something big. But instead I was like, man, I can't wait till I get to level.
You get a voiceover from Orbit that says Septix Prime is a really bad guy. If we can kill him, the Fallen will be really upset.
And I remember the first time, very vividly, the first time I did that first strike. And I got to the end where that room was just full of bones. And it was like called like the Hall of Bones, something really epic. I was like, oh, dude, what are we
this
about
looks
to
cool.
fight? This is going to be awesome. And then it was a giant floating cyber eye.
Which seems a little... I mean, this is a completely different conversation, but that seems a little... the eyeball thing was always really weird to me. Like, with the Fallen, like, they seem completely different, like, characters.
Well,
but whatever, I don't know what their relationship is, because the game never really tells me. They just tell me
that.
the eyeball is the boss, and the forearm people listen to it.
Shoot him in the eye.
Shoot him in the eye. Get the crit damage.
And so that was something that was really disappointing to me. And when I realized that I can't get the fun that I want from this game on demand, like I can't jump in with a group of 4 people and it not like the raid was 6 people, but you had to be a highly trained like task force. Like if someone who'd never run the raid before was with you, you were probably not going to do very well.
Yeah, you would think the strikes would be like raid training ground.
Yeah,
but strikes there's no strategy. There are no mechanics, like we said earlier, where in the last video, where none of the story missions have any variety or anything. There are no mechanics in the entire game until you get to the raid, when there are some freaking
hard,
very difficult. There are, especially for first. I mean, everyone now knows how to cheese the boss and knock him off the level and all this stuff. But when you're doing it for the first time, it is challenging, and it's hard to wrap your head around. You're like, oh, I have to carry the shield. I have to cleanse people. I have to. No one had any experience doing any of this.
Exactly.
And it's like, where did this come from? It's cool.
Yeah.
But it would have been really nice to see some hints of that.
Yeah.
Which is what WoW does.
Yeah.
WoW has bosses. I mean, most bosses in lower level dungeons are tank and spank. But once you get to sort of towards the higher ones, I mean, there are mechanics. There are certain things you need to do. You need to stand in this place. You need to do this. You need to interrupt this. And when you go to the raid, you are familiar with some of those ideas. Destiny doesn't have any of that.
Yeah, none of it.
It just drops you in the deep end. And people figure it out. I'm not acting like we figured it out.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard. It's hard at first, but once you figure it out, it's not that difficult. But it just would have been nice to have seen some of that earlier.
Yeah. To me, I feel like that's a pretty simple thing to fix because they're rolling out new strikes with the new content.
It is.
So start experimenting, like, start simple, like make it where the shield is a core mechanic of a strike. Because strike is 4 people, is that right? 3 people.
3, because the fire team
okay.
Fire team is 3, so 2 fire teams as raid.
So
yeah,
I think I said
6.
5 earlier, so my bad. But let someone get the shield and have a move where they like, rather than bashing people with the shield, like let them have a move where they like they do the cleansing, but like make this just big shield wall, and then the boss does a giant AoE attack that will kill everyone unless you hide behind the shield wall, dude. Like that's a simple
just something
yeah. I think there's I can think of like 3 WoW bosses just off the top of my head that use that same mechanic, but it's a simple team building exercise that
it gets you used to doing something besides standing there and shooting people in the head.
Oh, here comes the floaty things.
It means you have to pay attention. It means you have
to jump over here.
So I completely agree, and yeah. I think we may see that. I think we were hoping Dark Below would have. I mean, it was foolish for us to think that a DLC that I'm sure they had made pretty big progress on already when the game shipped that it was going to be drastically different from the main game. We read a lot about it. It was not, so we didn't pick it up, and we haven't been playing it. Mm-hmm. But I think give it time, like we were talking about with Diablo, where Diablo is completely different now. If Destiny is still kicking pretty strong in a year, and maybe they come out with some really interesting expansions. So. Maybe they add some really interesting story elements. Maybe they add more mechanics and some stuff to the strikes.
Yeah.
And I hope that's the case, and we would be interested in playing it. I think if it did do something like that, but
we'll see. That's all I can say.
I think let's talk about Crucible also. Yeah. Crucible is a pretty big part. I mean, it's the PvP portion of this.
And one thing I have to understand is some people bought this game
for Crucible.
And
I'm a pretty big PvP guy.
Yeah.
I love Halo. I mean, I love Halo single player, but I also love competitive Halo. You play multiplayer shooters too, so it's not like
I like the competitive nature of it. It's just for Destiny specifically, I was more excited for those cooperative moments. Because I did, and I think part of the reason I wasn't excited is probably some of the reasons we're going to talk about right now.
Yeah.
As far as the Crucible.
I mean, I don't have a whole lot of comments on the Crucible. I didn't play it a whole lot. When I was going in, I thought I was going to be like in WoW. I play PvP is my main thing. Mm-hmm. I've always been a PvP player. I always do battlegrounds, arenas, and I expected some of that with Destiny. Once again, I was going into this expecting an MMO style because that's kind of what they were saying. I mean, they didn't straight up, but that's kind of what they were pushing towards. It was an MMO shooter hybrid. But Crucible, I think a lot of it comes down to balance.
Yeah,
it's not balanced at all. There's only a handful of maps, and then balance wise, and I'm not even talking about weapons balance. I'm mostly talking about class balance.
Yeah, Warlock OP.
Warlock is very strong. But when like an entire team of Titans who all have the bubble shield can come onto can enter a control point match, and they can put like 2 bubbles on each control point where they get a massive shield boost when they're in it, and they can just punch to death anyone who walks in with no opposition. How is that fun? Why is that fun?
Do you think
why can you do that? Like, I mean, I understand, like, the game was made for PvE, and they gave the classes these abilities, and I'm sure they tested them out in PvP, but they bring them in there, and they're just so wildly different. I know early on, Blade Dancer could just walk in a room, kill 6 people with 2 presses of the right trigger, and you're like, just what is this? Like, I mean, Call of Duty, you have kill streaks. Halo, you have power weapons. And then in Destiny, it's just like, you'll get your super at some point. Some people's supers are like, okay. I mean, like, everyone has something that's pretty strong, I would say. But, like, when Titans and Hunters, or, I mean, everyone, I guess, has, like, one super ability who can clear an entire room of people in
different ways.
Clubs. Yeah. And so everyone kind of has that, and then they also have like another kind of like unique ability. It's just, it feels weird. Like, it feels like it can't be a competitive shooter when you have like these hugely different, and then throw in like everyone has different guns, everyone has different upgraded guns. Yeah. And it's just, to me, it was very not fun. And then there weren't very many maps. There were really only, I can't even tell you. There are only a handful of them, and I only thought like 2 of them were actually any fun. Yeah. And I hate the maps that have vehicles on them with passion. Because once again, that game is not a game for vehicles. That game is not a game designed around vehicles. It was just unless you have your
vehicles.
He loves vehicles. But in Halo, you have means to deal with vehicles. You have grenades. You have the rocket launcher. You can board them.
Yeah.
And in Destiny, it's like, well, your grenades like kind of do stuff against it. If you have ammo for your rocket launcher, you can maybe kill it in like a shot or 2. I think probably most of the time more than 2 shots it would take to kill it.
Yeah, it depends.
Or if you have your ultimate, you can blow it up in 1 hit. But if you don't have your ultimate, and because like you don't always have ammo for your launchers and your grenades don't really do anything, and you can't board them or anything, If someone was really good with the vehicle, they could kind of just dominate, and it was just not.
That guy in.
Yeah, and it was just not very fun for me. So
yeah, there was. I mean, I'm a mediocre player. Like I would.
Oh yeah, I'm not great.
I would strive to maybe hit a 1-to-1 kill death ratio, but I remember most of the time when I got the vehicle, the tank.
Oh, you were good.
Like
I mean, you're in.
It was like 17-1, and I was like, this is like I would be screaming if I was these other people.
I mean, in Halo, you do that too.
Yeah,
but like
I mean,
I said, Halo, you have like actual strategic
like
means.
The thing with Halo is like I've learned what people do to kill me, and so
you can kind of
I position myself and I do the things in the vehicle, and that's the strategy. People have got to figure out how to outplay my strategy of avoiding them in the vehicle. But yeah, I mean Crucible, when I played it, because I like that. I like multiplayer. It's but the reason that I quickly gravitated and was more excited for the PvE is from the very start when I saw Crucible, I had this just gut feeling that I was like, they finished this game PvE, and then they said, all right, let's build the PvP mode now. And they may not have done this, but you're right. The class.
I mean, it feels like obviously like the strikes and the raids and stuff. That was the
focus.
Primary focus, and then it's just like, oh, well, we know how to do deathmatch. We know how to do like an online multiplayer shooter, like versus mode. We're just gonna incorporate that into Destiny.
Yeah.
It seemed like an idea that like not that it was tacked on, but it's not necessarily like part of that core vision of what they wanted Destiny was. It was just like, people obviously expect this in a multiplayer shooter, and so we're gonna have it, and we're gonna make it Destiny, and it's gonna have, you can bring in your custom weapons, and you're gonna have your class, and just I don't know if they meshed very well. Like Borderlands, for example. Borderlands doesn't really have a competitive matchmaking mode where you play team deathmatch or control point.
Well,
and that's because every character is so different.
Yeah.
And like TF2 obviously is like class-based shooter where everyone is different and has different abilities and items.
But it's balanced.
But it's balanced around that. Destiny is, I think there was zero thought into how or not zero thought, but it's just not balanced that same way.
Well,
it's not.
And if you think about World of Warcraft, the classes perform a different role in both PvP and PvE. And you have tank, mage, tank, DPS, and healer.
Yeah.
And and when they go over to PvP, they have a different role that they play. Now,
you still have healers.
You still have healers
and stuff,
but the focus is I would say different, because when you're in a raid, you're focused on obeying the mechanics. The healers have to heal through certain things, whereas the DPS has to not stand in object.
Don't stand in the fire.
Whereas tanks have to make sure that the monster doesn't get near the damage. Whereas in PvE, they're running straight to the damage. So the damage,
they're fighting. I mean, you're
fighting.
Still doing healing and the tanks are still trying to get in the thick of things, but
Destiny doesn't do anything to make that
everyone
is
DPS.
Yeah, everyone's DPS.
Everyone is a killer. And so no one is different.
Sorry. Being a Titan gives you
It gives you the bubble.
And
you have more armor, which means you can take like maybe a couple more shots than
But it's nothing
other people.
that really substantiates that. And that's why I went into Crucible, I played it for maybe 20, 30 matches, and I was like, meh, okay.
Yeah, I probably played it a little more than you, but
yeah, you played it much more.
To me, that was the most forgettable
yeah.
part of the game.
And that kind of segues into something that I want to talk about just as a whole, because I had some really great experiences, but the sense of community in the game.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Can we talk about that?
It's why Destiny is alive.
Mm-hmm.
It's why, despite I think Destiny not being a fantastic game by any means, the sense of community, and I will say it's part of this. You go through hell together, and you come out with that group of people stronger and more united. It's like everyone came into this game, and it's a grind. It's a terrible, terrible grind.
But we're all in this together.
Yeah, we're all in this together. The Cryptarch's a jackass. We all hate him. And everyone has these shared experiences, and there's no matchmaking for the raid. But, you can pretty easily find nice people. Our raid experiences were very pleasant. We didn't find any assholes, despite them just being random.
Now
strangers.
let me tell you, this is the aspect of it that I thought was cool, but also annoyed me. But the way we found our raid partners, because we had 3 people, we needed 6.
We had 3 people, we needed 3 more. Yeah.
I literally walked into the GameStop in our mall. I walked up to the counter and I said, "Hello, gentlemen. Which of you play Destiny on the Xbox One?" And of the 4 or 5 employees there, 2 of them said, "We play." And I was like, "Might I procure your gamer tag so that we might raid together?" And they were like, "Indeed, sir."
So there you go.
I wrote down their names, and then they had one other friend join in. Boom, raid group. That was cool, but that was also kind of dumb.
I think we also tried, like, just people in our tower, like our instanced tower also.
we would try and jump
We
in.
would just try to, like, message people and see if they wanted to join. Obviously, there's online tools for meeting up with people, and that's all really cool. Do I wish there was matchmaking?
Yeah.
Probably. I don't... Like, because they're like, it's impossible. Matchmaking would never work because it's too hard, and you need to be, like, a core hard group to be able to do it. But that's not true, because we do it with complete strangers anyways.
Yeah.
We go online and do play matchmaker. We just, like, it's the same thing. It's just Bungie didn't put it in the game.
So you tell me how many times that people have done the raid. Honestly, I feel that once I finish the raid, I should be able to matchmake with other people. I should be able to meet other people who have done the raid, and we should be able to roll the raid together. Now, if you want to introduce some kind of coaching system in that, where it's like, I'm new, and so it's like, people can opt into having a new player.
And that naturally happens is when you have people... Yeah, when you have people who haven't done the raid and you have more experienced people, like, they show you what to do, and it's really cool. Like I said, that community aspect is really strong and really great. Now, I think maybe the hard mode doesn't need, like, almost like WoW, the hard raid doesn't need matchmaking. Like, in WoW, like, if you, like, WoW nowadays, you can do LFR, which is kind of like the baby version of the raid.
I want the items.
Yeah, like, lesser items.
some
but
items.
So you can do that and still have that cool raid experience with a group of strangers. I think Destiny could use something like that where you can matchmake the raid. Maybe you don't get as good as stuff. Or, although I think, like I said, if you have gone through the raid once, then you can matchmake. Because people are smart. Like, you get in raid groups and, someone knows a new glitch that other people don't know. And they're like, oh, this is how you knock them off the ledge or whatever, and then everyone knows how to knock them off the ledge.
That's cool.
And you knock them off the ledge, and then you get in the next group, and you're like, well, this is easy as pie.
Yeah.
And then you're finishing the raid in 20 minutes instead of 3 hours like you were the week before.
Yeah.
And, like, that naturally happens, and so you can't sit there and tell me that, like, that matchmaking wouldn't work, because that's just, maybe for the first couple weeks when everyone was learning it, yeah.
Yeah.
But afterwards, when everyone has it memorized and they go on YouTube and they watch videos on how to cheese these bosses over and over again,
let us play the game.
It would be easy. And so I think it should have matchmaking. That's an ongoing discussion I think people are going to have with Bungie, and Bungie's going to have with the community, that I think the community is strong enough for matchmaking.
Yeah.
Maybe not for the hard one, which, like I said, wouldn't WoW, like the normal...
But you can matchmake with people to meet people who are good.
Yeah, and then maybe you could go to the raid.
Your own group.
And your hard raid, yeah.
There's no excuses anymore, because friends list on these new consoles are, practically...
It's very simple. Go to your recently played, oh, cool, this guy was cool, add friend, boom, you're done. Next week you're all set. It'd be very simple. But I think the community is...
The community is great.
It's probably the best aspect of that game. I think... now, I actually reviewed Destiny for Tech Times, where I freelance write for. And I think I mentioned specifically in my review, Destiny's world would be, and this still holds true, Destiny's world would be completely lifeless if not for the players that inhabit it. Players created the loot cave, where now there is this kind of mythic status given to that.
Whether you love it or hate it, you can't ignore it.
Players did that. Players are the ones who are always dancing and joking, and players are the one who come up with all these in-jokes and just funny experiences. They're the one who give this world life, and that's really cool. But
sculpt these systems around that.
Well, and I think they will. It's just to me, it was very disappointing that Bungie the game did not have any life of its own, and players had to insert life here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if Bungie intentionally was we want to make this game as bland as possible so players can elevate it? If
Yeah.
so, that's a batshit crazy strategy, but it worked.
Yeah. I mean, it worked, but that's it. Bungie didn't do that. That's not them. They have the luxury of having.
I mean, they
really
gave.
good fans.
I would say they gave people the tool. That sounds actually. Never mind. Scrap that idea.
They didn't give us the tools because we don't get to meet people unless we see their gamer tag and we click on them or bumper click on them and say invite to chat or something. Like there's no.
Well, yeah, and that
mechanics
chat
for that.
communication, like they patched some of that stuff in where you could like talk to people you match made.
Okay, cool.
Like fire teams and stuff,
yeah.
you could like match because like
Perfect.
previously, unless they were in your party, you couldn't talk. They added some of that, and they are very much listening to the community, and the community is very loud.
Yeah.
And they are listening. So I think that's a strong sign for the future.
Yeah.
But as
So-
for right now, we're
Speaking of the future,
okay. Yeah.
I want us to take a quick break, and when we come back for part 3 of this, which will be the last part, I want us to talk about the future of Destiny, and we're going to focus on kind of like where it's going, where it needs to go, and kind of maybe we'll have some fun and make some predictions about things that we hope to see or think would make it better. So take a quick break, and we'll be back in a little bit to talk about it.